Good evening, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. 日本の皆様、こんばんは。I'm Toma, working for Forestry and Forest Product Research Institute, FFPRI Japan. It is my great pleasure to moderate this important seminar, Sustainable Forest Management for Nature-Based Solutions, organized by FFPRI, Forestry Agency, and International Tropical Timber Organization, ITTO. I have been at this COP venue since Monday. I heard about the expectation for forests' role in NbS here and there. For forests to fulfill their role, we must manage them sustainably. This seminar will explore forest-based climate mitigation and adaptation actions. 5 speakers will share insight on forest-related actions based on their experience. A panel discussion will follow the 5 presentations. Before moving into the presentation session, I am honored to share the opening remark from Ms Sheam Satkuru, Executive Director of ITTO.
It gives me great pleasure to welcome all the distinguished dignitaries and participants at this seminar on sustainable forest management for nature-based solutions. The International Tropical Timber Organization, ITTO, is delighted to join forces with Japan's Forest and Forest Products Research Institute, FFPRI, and the Forestry Agency of Japan in co-organizing this seminar at this beautiful setting of the Japan Pavilion at the 29th Conference of the Parties to the United Nations Climate Conference. Our respective institutions are natural and close allies as we share a common vision in advocating the various nature-based solutions that sustainable forest management offers as a valuable path in building sustainable and resilient societies, contributing to the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Now, with certainty, one can state that humankind is at crossroads in tackling climate change, where 2024 is already set to beat the 1.5 degree target. This year, we have witnessed the atrocities and suffering caused by its effects, from stronger wildfires to catastrophic flooding and the regrettable loss of human lives. It is imperative to accelerate climate-smart actions and the adoption of nature-based solutions as a viable way forward. The topic of today's seminar will showcase the sustainable use of forests for disaster risk reduction while providing decent livelihoods for forest-dependent communities. It is well recognized that forests offer shelter and protection to extreme weather events. Thus, they are in nature an adaptation measure to the adverse effects of climate change. For example, restored forest landscapes in mountainous areas may prevent landslides, while mangrove ecosystems offer coastal protection against erosion, surges, and tsunamis. Sustainably managed forests may be more resilient to extreme droughts and pests. Sustainable forest management is also crucial in fighting rural poverty and land degradation, especially in the tropics, which in turn will reduce the risk of future environmental disasters from occurring. It is increasingly clear that tropical forests are important for the long-term health and well-being of millions of people living in the tropics, and arguably also for those living elsewhere. As such, greater investments in sustainable tropical forest management are urgently needed. Such investments are also climate smart, as they will save incredible expenditure incurred in dealing with the losses and costs of post-disaster management. Forests are also central in the transition to carbon-neutral economies through the provision of timber, one of the most environmentally friendly materials, as well as multiple ecosystem services, that range from fresh water supply, carbon sequestration and storage, biodiversity conservation, recreation, risk disaster prevention, and many others. Thus, one can state that sustainable forest management and landscape restoration offer effective nature-based solutions beyond disaster risk prevention and carbon. They are effective means for building circular bioeconomies and a sustainable future. Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, the ITTO is a unique intergovernmental organization that promotes the sustainable management and conservation of tropical forests and the expansion and diversification of trade in tropical timber from sustainably managed and legally harvested forests. We translate our mandate into action through policy development and the implementation of field projects in our almost 40 years of existence, many of them thanks to the generous contribution of the government of Japan and other donors. Many of those projects have components to safeguard the protective nature of forests against natural disasters through reforestation, landscape restoration, and awareness raising with active community participation. Today, you will taste a sample of the positive impacts of such work, along with other interesting initiatives. ITTO stands ready to continue working with its members and partners in attracting the financing that tropical forests so need to realize its potential for building a resilient, sustainable, and inclusive future, as aspired by all parties to the United Nations Climate Change Conference. I thank you and I wish you a wonderful session.
I thank Sham for her impressive and informative remarks. Now, let's move to the presentation session. The first presenter is Ms.越前未帆, Forestry Agency, Japan. Her presentation is protecting living environment from natural disasters due to climate change. Forest conservation as Eco-DRR. Echizen-san, please take the floor.
Thank you, Dr. Toma, for your introduction. Good evening, everyone. It is a great honor to introduce Japanese measures on forest-based climate change adaptation on the Japanese Pavilion. As you have probably felt, this summer was extremely hot. It is said that it becomes the hottest summer on record. In Tokyo, the number of extremely hot days with temperatures exceeding 35 degrees Celsius has increased 20 times compared to 30 years ago when observation started. We live in the progressive climate change. Climate change affects weather patterns. The IPCC reports that climate change-induced weather extremes lead negative impacts on nature and people. Next. In fact, severe natural disasters are occurring around the world. Once a natural disaster occurs, it causes significant damages to society, the economy, and people's lives, hindering sustainable development. As natural disasters are expected to increase in frequency and scale, measures to protect people's lives from disasters are needed. Next. In this regard, the enhancement of disaster resilience using nature is highlighted. Eco-DRR, ecosystem-based disaster risk reduction, is an approach that effectively utilizes nature to address disasters, disaster prevention and mitigation. Since civil engineering facilities alone cannot cope with intensifying disasters, it is effective to integrate that natural ecosystem functions, such as forest, paddy field, and pond into disaster prevention and mitigation strategies. By using nature without destroying it, co-benefits such as biodiversity conservation, carbon sequestration, and landscape maintenance can be achieved simultaneously. It also reduces introducing and maintenance cost and make it easier to implement in developing countries with limited financial resources. Next. Here are some examples of forest-based Eco-DRR. Forest can serve as water retention, preventing soil erosion, landslide, and slope collapses, and coastal protection such as wind, sand, and tidal damage such as mangrove forest. The advantage of Eco-DRR is that it can be implemented using local ecosystems and resources tailored to local situations. I expect that latter presenters will introduce their own Eco-DRR, and I'm going to focus on forest-based Eco-DRR measures for reducing mountain disasters in Japan. Next. In the past, excessive logging due to population growth, industrial development, and wartime material procurement caused severe forest degradation. During that time, heavy rains such as typhoons caused flood and mountain disasters, resulting in damages to lives and property. In response to these disasters, after World War II, the government undertook forest restoration and forest conservation to restore degraded lands. And as shown, next. Yes, sir. And as shown in this graph, the area of degraded land decreased continuously. Next. Thanks to these forest restoration efforts, the frequency of mountain disasters has decreased. This example shows that forest restoration using erosion control techniques have improved watershed conservation, and despite the higher rainfall during the 2019 typhoon compared to the 1955 typhoon, the number of mountain disasters has significantly reduced. Next slide. However, while the number of mountain disasters, right graph, red bar graph, has decreased with forest restoration, the scale of damage per site, a light blue line on the right graph, has been expanding year by year. It is said to be caused by recent rainfall patterns with heavy rainfall in short period of time. Next. Examples of intensifying natural disaster are such as increased sediment runoff, simultaneous occurrence of mountain disasters, or collapse from deeper layers, and intensification of driftwood disasters. Next slide. In response to these issues, the National Resilience Plan has been formulated as an umbrella plan to protect people's lives from large-scale disasters in Japan. Based on this, a 5-year national plan has been established with specific measures to be prioritized, such as forest maintenance measures in areas at risk of mountain disasters. Additionally, the Forestry Agency held expert meetings to analyze the characteristics of recent disasters and to develop more efficient and effective measures. The meeting concluded priorities for mountain disaster management, which include promotion of erosion control or collaboration with watershed management, and using new technology such as IT or AIs. Next slide. Based on this instruction, erosion control dams were installed where sediment runoff occurred and road became impassable due to heavy rain in 2018. A number of mountain disasters has been significantly reduced afterward. Next. We are also utilizing the accumulated technologies for international cooperation through JICA, Japan International Cooperation Agency. In Uttarakhand, India, slope collapse were occurring in forest area adjacent to road and towns, caused damage to their living environment. To cope with that, a project has been implemented with several advanced technologies such as dams to be completed in a short construction period using local sourced materials or vegetation planting around erosion control works. I believe that the most appropriate Eco-DRR can be developed for each site by combining the knowledge and experiences of stakeholders. Next slide. I'm excited to take part in the knowledge sharing in the upcoming presentations and panel discussions. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Echizen-san. We could learn Eco-DRR or how forests protect the living environment and Japanese experience of that. Now, let me call second presenter, Dr. Koji Tamai, Principal Research Director of FFPRI. He shared results of a joint collaborative research between Vietnam and Japan. The title is Development of Disaster Prevention and Mitigation Technologies through Forest as NbS and Implementation Examples in Vietnam. Tamai-san, please take floor.
Thank you, Chairman. Today's my presentation title is here. I saw a little long, but next slide, please. So forests have the effect of reducing the risk of various disasters shown here. And these effects have been widely used in Japan. So it is expected to use these effects in other countries. Today's topic is about the effects of forests against tsunami by earthquake and storm surges by typhoon as following. At first, the technology developed for coastal forest restoration to reduce the force of tsunamis in Japan. At second, the application of this technology as a countermeasure against storm surges caused by typhoon in Vietnam. Next, please. Measures against tsunami and storm surge are considered coastal forests of green infra and seawalls of gray infra. This table compares the advantages and disadvantages of the green infra and gray infra in 5 categories, with the superior cell colored. Green infra has disadvantages as that the limitation level of the disaster risk reduced function is lower than that of gray infra, and it takes time for the trees to grow before they grow to obtain the fully function. On the other hand, green infra has an advantage over gray infra in terms of long-lasting, low cost, and repairing on its own when they damaged. With these pros and cons and the scale of the disaster to prepare for, the combination of green infra and gray infra should be determined. Next slide, please. The tsunami caused by the magnitude 9 over earthquake on 11 March 2011 severely damaged Japan. Many buildings were damaged by tsunamis. On the other hand, coastal forests caught ships and prevented them from entering the land and damaging there in many places. The right photo shows 12 ships trapped in the coastal forest. Next, please. This left figure shows the effect on reduce the force of tsunami by the coastal forest. Y-axis indicates the estimated force of a tsunami at various forest types. The weakest tsunami was estimated at dense pine forest. The strongest tsunami was estimated at no forest. In general, the denser forest, the greater the effect of tsunami weakening. However, many coastal forests were destroyed because they could not resist the force of the tsunami. The coastline with damaged forest was more than 130 kilometers. Next, please. So we developed the model to predict in advance the effect of restored coastal forests in reducing the force of tsunamis. In the case shown in these figures, left figures, especially in middle figure, the coastal forest has estimated to reduce the force of the tsunami from the blue line to red line. Moreover, it was also predicted that coastal forests in the area between 100 to 200 meters from the seashore would be damaged by tsunami forces, while the forest in the area between 200 and 300 meters from the seashore would not. The simulation results determined that the depth of coastal forests need to be at least 200 meters in the area between 100 and 300 meters from seashore. When planning the restoring the coastal forest, this results contributed to plan to restore the coastal forest. In this model, 3 factors of the data are required for model simulation. They are depth of coastal forest, tree density, and resistance of tree bodies to tsunamis. Restoration of coastal forests has been completed on 130 kilometers by 2020. Next slide, please. We are now attempting to use this technology in Vietnam to assess the effectiveness of mangrove forests in reducing the force of storm surges. Next slide, please. In the target area, mangrove forests expand into the sea outside the seawall. These figures show the depth of the mangrove forest through the storm surge passes before reaching the seawall. And mapping information on the effectiveness of mangrove forests in reducing the force of storm surges is expected to be used for efficient seawall management and disaster prevention planning. The left figure shows the case of a storm surge coming from the southeast, while the right figure shows the case from the south. From these figures, the depth of coastal forest can be estimated, and tree density is also estimated with remote sensing technology. The other necessary data is strength of the tree body. Next slide, please. Therefore, an experiment has been conducted to apply force to the mangrove trees and pull them down, as shown in the photos. As shown on the right figure, the pulling force gradually increases when when trees cannot bear the load, they break or fold over. The load at that time is defined here as Mmax. This figure shows the relationship between Mmax in y-axis and tree size, such as diameter in x-axis. As trees get bigger, the Mmax increases, but the degree of increase depends on the species and other factors. More Mmax data is needed to assess the effect of mangrove forests on storm surges attenuation. Thank you. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Tamai-san. We learned the importance of balancing gray and green infrastructure, and also learned the role of coastal forest for reducing tsunami impacts and mangrove forest for reducing forest storm surges with scientific data. The third presenter is Ms. Jennifer Conje, Director, Forest Management Division, ITTO. She talks restoration of degraded tropical forest and sustainable forest management, nature-based solutions for global challenges. Hi, Jennifer. Now the floor is yours.
So thank you very much, Dr. Toma, for the introduction, and good morning, good evening to everyone. I'm very jet lagged. It is a pleasure for ITTO to co-organize this event along with FFPRI and the Japanese Ministry of Agricultural, Forestry, and Fisheries. We extend our deep appreciation to Japan for hosting this event at the Japanese Pavilion at COP29. Next slide, please. You already heard about ITTO's mandate in the opening address by our Executive Director, Sheam Satkuru. We have been in existence for more than 30 years and have assisted in the implementation of more than 1,200 projects and activities addressing different aspects of sustainable forest management of tropical forests. ITTO's membership represents about 80% of the world's tropical forests and 90% of the global tropical timber trade. Next slide, please. Forest and land degradation affects almost 2 billion hectares of land and threatens the livelihoods, well-being, food, water, and energy security of nearly 3.2 billion people. Forest landscape restoration is widely recognized as a key nature-based solution to climate crisis by increasing carbon sequestration and reducing GHG emissions and improving resiliencies of landscapes and reducing disaster risks. Forest restoration and rehabilitation of degraded lands is also key to conserving existing intact high-value forest, reducing deforestation, and slowing the loss of biodiversity loss. ITTO has invested through the generosity of donors, some of which you see on the screen, including the government of Japan, over $17 million in forest restoration and rehabilitation projects. ITTO's actual investment in forest restoration is much higher, as that number only captures project work whose main objective is forest restoration and rehabilitation. Many of our projects have multiple objectives, with restoration being just one of them. This number also does not account for ITTO's work conducted on workshops, training, and policy work on the issue. Restoration projects implemented with our executing agencies and partners have spanned different types of forest ecosystems. Our interventions have included a range of activities such as direct planting, national and subnational restoration plans, nursery development, alternative livelihood development, financing schemes, and community training and awareness. as well as information management tools. Next slide, please. Sustainable forest management and forest restoration are critical in achieving many internationally agreed goals. Afforestation and reforestation have become integral components of numerous countries' climate mitigation and adaptation strategies to fulfill their NDCs. SFM and forest restoration also directly contribute to multiple goals and targets of the SDGs, including no poverty, gender equality, clean water, sanitation, decent work and economic growth, responsible consumption and production, climate action, and of course, life on land. Later in this presentation, I will give examples of 3 case studies where you can easily see how SFM and forest restoration contribute to these multiple goals. In addition, ITTO has developed a brochure which highlights how our work contributes to different SDG goals. And Ramon, maybe you could raise your hand if at any point you need those brochures. Ramon has them available in the back of the room or at the ITTO booth. Next slide, please. Tropical forests cover 45% of all forests and harbor nearly 62% of global terrestrial vertebrate species and nearly 80% of all tree species. In 2010, ITTO and CBD developed a joint collaborative initiative to support member countries' agreements to conserve, restore, and enhance the biodiversity and ecosystem services of tropical forestry. This initiative has funded implementation of projects in 23 countries across 3 tropical regions totaling over $15 million. A brochure capturing how some of these projects contribute to specific Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework goals has also been developed, and you can also get that from Ramon or at the ITTO booth. I do not have time to dive into ITTO's work on biodiversity during this session, but I will be speaking more in depth about this collaborative initiative and particularly biodiversity and production forest at the Indonesian Pavilion at 2 p.m. on Monday, if you're interested in hearing more. Next slide, please. For now, I'd like to quickly highlight examples of ITTO's restoration work in each of the 3 tropical regions. The first is a project in promoting community restoration of mangroves and resiliency in some villages within the Rewa Delta in Fiji. Many of these villages are threatened by rising sea levels. The project is working with villages to create micro-enterprises, nurseries for the propagation of quality seedlings of indigenous mangrove and other tree species, which you can see in the photograph. The seedlings are planted to restore degraded mangroves within the delta, and the excess is sold to the Ministry of Forestry and other local organizations to help reach national reforestation targets. The project is also working to create more livelihood opportunities, especially for women groups, and energy sources other than the collection of mangrove wood for fuel. For example, in one village, a small piggery has been developed where, in addition to the rearing of the pigs for market, the waste is used in a biogas digester to create another energy source. Small woodlots of other timber species are also being grown to replace mangrove wood collection for village energy needs. In addition to restoring mangroves, which is known to lessen the risk of flood disasters, we are also helping in small but important ways to help these communities adapt to climate change. For example, in the photo with the 2 children, they are standing on a concrete pathway that was built in one village to help the community get to the main village community house when their land is flooded during cyclones. The government of Japan is the main donor to this ITTO project, and the main executing agency is the Fijian Ministry of Fisheries and Forestry. Next slide, please. This next example is from Togo, and I didn't realize Cécile is actually going to delve more into this project, so I won't spend too much time. But this is a project which is assisting women groups in the restoration of forest landscapes in the prefectures of Lita and Lakes in Togo. This is a multi-phase project implemented through the African Women's Network for Community Forest Management. And the main challenges they are facing in this area is the availability of wood fuels and lack of initiatives to contribute to food security and forest protection. So I know that Cecilia, you're going to go much more into this project, so I'm not going to delve too much in it, but what you'll see is multiple photographs where you see the active engagement of women groups and in nursery development, as well as the planning of restoration agroforestry plots. And the main donor to this project is Soko Gakkai. It is a small project in comparison to other projects we have in ITTO, but small does not mean not important. In fact, it's very important to those villages and very impactful on the ground to those individuals and communities. The next slide is from Latin America. Sorry, from Costa Rica, to be specific. Forest restoration and rehabilitation are defined in general as actions to increase forest cover, structure, and ecological functions and biodiversity to an optimal climax state. Excuse me. However, it does not mean that the utilization aims of a restored forest is necessarily always preservation or full conservation of the area. Restored degraded forest and afforestation for commercial production forestry is also important to meet society's wood products, fiber, and wood-based energy needs. It also ensures that we can protect high conservation value forests for other environmental services. Sustainably produced wood is a renewable substitute for many carbon-intensive materials. Commercial reforestation rates in Costa Rica have been falling since the early 2010s, reducing the timber supply for the domestic market, which in turn has led to increased risk of illegal logging in natural forest and in protected areas and in private forest lands. And it also decreases future employment opportunities in this sector and puts at risk the country's ability to reach its REDD+ targets. So this project seeks to develop and test an effective reforestation financing system that promoted the management of forest plantations, increases the productivity per hectare, and looks to develop high value-added timber products to improve forest producers' income. So on the screen, you see some photos of the project's nursery and genetic testing on seedlings to improve their resiliency to pests and diseases, as well as product development prototypes for the planted species, such as the use of balsa wood, which is one of the most lightweight timber species, to replace styrofoam and plastic for packaging, and creatively designed furniture pieces from acacia wood. Japan and the United States were the main donors to this project, with Costa Rica Institute of Technology School of Forestry as the main executing agency. So next slide, please. In conclusion, I'd like to bring to your attention ITTO's guidelines on forest landscape restoration in the tropics, which outlines 6 principles and 32 guiding principles when undertaking reforestation and afforestation actions. Next slide, please. Other technical guidelines and publications can be found on our website. Thank you for your attention, and I hope the information I presented today underscores the importance of restoring degraded tropical forests and SFM as nature-based solutions to a range of global challenges. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer, for sharing ITTO's effort contribution for managing world tropical forests in sustainable way, not only for timbers, but various forest environment services vital for people in the tropics, as well as in the world. Now let me call next presenter, Mr. Sakaguchi Noriaki, Senior Advisor, Global Environment Department, JICA. He will be talking mangrove conservation and restoration, enhancing synergies with climate change mitigation and adaptation, disaster risk reduction, and livelihood enhancement of coastal communities. Sakaguchi-san, please take the floor.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Noriaki Sakaguchi from Japan International Cooperation Agency. So first of all, thank you very much for having me in this important and valuable seminar. So today I would like to introduce you the mangrove conservation and restoration enhancing synergies with climate change mitigation and adaptation, disaster risk reduction, and enhancement of coastal community, livelihood enhancement coastal communities. So mangrove mangrove ecosystem provides us with multiple benefits to address social challenges as nature-based solutions, including disaster, climate change mitigation and adaptation, and disaster risk reduction, and community livelihood enhancement. So first, looking at contribution to climate change mitigation and adaptation. So mangrove ecosystems store a rich, much higher carbon than terrestrial forests, and 85 to 90% of total carbon is stored in below ground. Organic matter from river and sea are trapped by complicated root system, then stored below ground for longer period under an aerobiotic condition. And for the adaptation, so sediment trap and accretion function of mangroves protect coastal lines from sea level rise and coastal abrasion. So those figures are the soil accretion rates in different mangrove habitats. So average accretion rates in mangrove are higher than sea level rise rate between 1993 and 2010, 3.2 millimeter per year, and also enable to address sea level rise rates projected by IPCC 1.5 and 2.0 scenario. So mangrove contributes to climate change adaptation in coastal areas in the continent area and also SIDS. Oh, sorry. And mangrove ecosystem also contributes to disaster risk reduction and livelihood. Tsunami reduction effect was analyzed by field survey and modeling on the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami in Banda Aceh by Japanese researchers. As a result, tsunami height is effectively reduced by mangroves compared without mangroves. And also the mangrove contributes to the livelihood enhancement for communities, providing fishery and tourism resources. These figures are average economic values per hectare per year on fisheries and tourism based on relevant reviews on relevant literature in the world. So how do we maximize such multiple benefits in mangrove restoration? So there are a few challenges in the restoration. So one is so trade-off might be occurred among those benefits. For example, we only focusing on the carbon sequestration, so the biodiversity might be decreased, and other services also. And also sustainable management by local communities with livelihood generation is also essential. So we call the mangrove side event, held the mangrove side event at the COP16 CBD at Cali, Colombia, 2 weeks ago. And we identified key points for ensuring multiple benefits in the restoration. So first one is a quantitative evaluation on multiple services. So to visualize such multiple benefits to evaluate if they actually contribute to solve social challenges, such a challenge. And second one is technical and institutional guideline or scheme. So to guide proper design and implement of the project. And third one is a sustainable management. So community-based management with income generation is quite important to ensure the sustainability. So in a carbon project, for example, in a carbon project, if we ensure not only carbon, also other benefits, biodiversity and coastal protection and livelihood enhancement, it can generate high quality carbon. I mean the carbon plus non-carbon benefits. So it can be also scaled up the restoration by financing from private sector. So next, let me introduce you JICA's cooperation and approach on mangrove conservation with addressing social challenges. JICA has been conducting a technical cooperation project with 10 countries supporting to enhance capacity and develop models for mangrove restoration and sustainable management. Especially we have so long history, the cooperation with Indonesia since 1992, and we so rehabilitate the degraded mangrove and in Bali and Lombok, and also established the Mangrove Information Center in Bali 2003, and the results of the projects and outputs disseminate to ASEAN region. And currently, we agreed on with the Indonesian government on the project on strengthening capacity of sustainable management of mangrove for ecosystem-based adaptation to climate change. So when we develop the project, we have to consider the consistency with national policies to scale up our project. Here, let me introduce the relevant policies to mangroves. So total greenhouse gas emission in Indonesia, total gas GHG emission in 2019 was 1,845 megaton CO2 equivalent. The main contribution sector was forestry and other land use, FOLU, 50%. And the Indonesian government committed the emission reduction in enhanced NDC 2022 reduced the 32% of emission by Indonesia itself, and up to 43% with the international cooperation against the 2030 BAU. And also, FOLU contribution to the reduction, the 70% out of 32% target, and also 28% out of 41% target. So through the reduction through the halting the deforestation and also sustainable management of peatland and also including mangroves. And mangrove ecosystem so the policies for the restoration, 600,000 mangrove restoration. So government of Indonesia commits accelerating to restore mangrove forests, targeting 600,000 hectares by 2024, developing roadmap for mangrove rehabilitation and by 2030. And also Indonesia has a policy scheme on social forestry business development. This scheme is to promote sustainable forest management at the same time support local communities to improve their livelihoods through ecotourism and silverfishery. So taking into consideration these policies, we are developing the project on strengthening the capacity of sustainable management of mangrove for ecosystem-based adaptation. These projects are composed of the four outputs. And the first one is right upper side, strengthen the function of Mangrove Information Center we developed established in 2003. So we hold the training course, inviting central and local governments and also extension workers and also leader of local communities. For the capacity building, sustainable management, and also the ecosystem-based adaptation. And also second, left upper side, we also enhance the scientific basis. So example, the assessment of the vulnerability and also capacity abilities against the climate change, and also estimate the carbon increase after rehabilitation of the mangroves and other ecosystem services. And the third, right lower side, third, we developed the model for rehabilitation and sustainable management of mangrove ecosystems. We developed the model for the community-based management, sustainable management of mangrove forests through the ecotourism and also offshore fisheries. And also we developed the guideline for the social forestry business development for the ecotourism and so on. And last, this is contribute to the World Mangrove Center. The World Mangrove Center now, Indonesian government preparing the established World Mangrove Center. We support to develop the basic concept for the information sharing system and also international capacity building and dialogue. Through these activities, we would like to contribute the 600,000 restoration and also sustainable management, and to achieve the national determined contribute NDC by 2030 targets. I think this is last. So thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Sakaguchi-san, for your informative long presentation on importance of mangrove, mitigating adaptive climate change, supporting local livelihoods, and how JICA support restoring mangrove forests in developed countries, including policy development. Now, let me call Ms. Cécile Ndjebet, the President and founder of the African Women's Network for Community Management. She informed us the achievement of REFACOF. The title of presentation is The Achievements of the Women's-Led Forest Landscape Restoration ITTO project in Togo and Benin. Now your time.
Thank you very much. Good evening. I'm going to share with you the achievement of women's-led forest landscape restoration with ITTO support under Soka Gakkai in Togo and in Benin. Next, please. Thank you. So we're going to know who is REFACOF, and then what are the objectives of those initiatives, what have been the main results and the major impact on landscape and on livelihood for women groups, and a short conclusion. Next, please. REFACOF is a network. Yes, please. Just next one. Yeah, African Women Network for Community Management of Forest. And we were created in May 2009 in Yaoundé, Cameroon. And now we are covering 20 West and Central African countries and Madagascar. This is an advocacy platform for African women's tenure right in land and forest reform. And you can see the map. The map shows the 20 countries who are members of the network so far. Next, please. Our mission is to promote women's rights in Africa and advocate to shape policies and practices for gender equity in land and forest tenure. Next, please. Impact and result. The women's-led landscape restoration initiatives in Togo and Benin have three main objectives. First one, to promote the participation of women in the restoration of the deforested and degraded land. Second one was to combating climate change. And the third is to improve livelihood of the families and communities in the project areas. We have got four main results. The first one is increase in the area reforested by women from 20 hectares in phase 1 to 35 hectares in phase 2. And now we are 43 hectares in phase 3, including 17 hectares in the open areas and 26 hectares in agroforests. 7 women groups representing a total of 150 women are involved, and they are using the Tungia method, and they have been implementing this project in 2 sites, in Agwegwang in the lake region, and then in Pagala Gar in Blita region in Togo. The initiative in Benin has just started. So we have got at least 18 training sessions were organized on issues related to nursery establishment and maintenance, tree planting and income generating activities, value chains development. We have got to construct 2 storage warehouses and provision of a variety of equipment acquired to strengthen the development of income generating activities in order to maximize the profit by what women were doing. Next, please. The major impact of this initiative, we have an increased forest cover and potential. And you can see that the first picture is, we can say year 0, and you can see the second picture is year 3. And you can see a great change in the environment, in the forest area that has been restored. Women capacity building has also improved in nursery establishment and production of tree seedlings, in agroforestry plantation, crops combined with trees, in income generating activities development, and in value chain mechanisms. We have improved food production for household consumption and for the market. We have improved income from the sale of food products and byproducts, improved livelihood and diversification of sources of income, increased motivation of women to perpetuate their activities in order to maintain their status of becoming permanent suppliers of byproduct food such as gari, tapioca, and coconut oil in their respective localities. We have now more improved social cohesion, where we see men and women together and the youth, where we used to have some conflict now going down. And we have improved their visibility at the regional, prefectural, and national level. Those women are invited almost in all the events now in Togo. Improve recognition of women as model in tree plant production, restoration, and livelihood development in this country. Next, please. Yes, in the conclusion, I would like to share that the implementation of the Women's-Led Landscape Restoration Initiative in Togo has been a great success. And this successful implementation encouraged ITTO through Soka Kakai to expand the initiative to Benin, where activities have just started, as I noted earlier. And REFACOF is grateful, very grateful to Soka Gakkai for their financial support. And we hope that this will encourage other funding partners to contribute in the upscaling of this successful and very impactful initiative in other parts of these countries or in other countries. As I mentioned, we are in 20 countries in Africa, including Madagascar. African women are key actors in addressing climate change, loss of biodiversity and poverty reduction in Africa. Please, the message I would like to share with you is trust African women and please support us to upscale out what we are doing for the interest of our planet. Thank you very much. Last slide.
Thank you, Cécile, for sharing your rich experience on forest landscape restoration and also role of African women for it. And that is in Japan very delayed. So now, let us move into the panel discussion. So, presenters, please take your seat on the stage. I think the sound is clear so that we do not need to use the headset. So we have learned about forest roles in adapting to climate change, such as reducing disaster risk and maintaining people's livelihood. This panel discussion will focus on measures for furthering such initiatives from two viewpoints. The first point is the key to success when expanding similar initiatives to other locations. And the second point is how we can collaborate with non-forestry sectors to promote nature-based solutions in a broader range of areas, including other ecosystems and land uses. I will ask you these questions one by one. So first, if someone were to implement the initiatives you introduce in a different location, what advice would you give them? Any lessons were crucial to your success? Please share them with us. And there is no set order for answering, so please raise your hand when ready.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce a Japanese experience because forestry agency usually forestry agency staff station in the field or the project field site to coordinate the project. So in that case, this coordinator is really important to bridge the local situation and the donor side Japanese technology technology. So the forestry agency coordinator knows both side information like field condition and as well as the expert for the forestry technology. So I'd like to mention about the importance of coordinator.
Thank you, Echizen-san. And I noticed we are short of time, so that please make your answer concisely. And who next?
Okay, thank you. If you had to upscale this, as I said in my presentation, like this, okay. I think what I could advise is to make sure that we have secure tenure for the communities, because this is a big challenge in those areas when we have to restore, to do restoration activities. We need to have a secure tenure right. Then we are sure that what we are doing is also sustainable. That first. The second one is very important to take the restoration as a multi-stakeholder issue. It's not for one, it's not for private, it's not for civil ministries, but it's for everybody. And please get on board local communities, including men and women and the youth, because those are people who are making things happen on the ground. What I shared there is just 1% or 10% of what we are doing concretely in Africa. So it's very, very important. The last one is, of course, restoration goes along with livelihood development. Make sure that we also adopt, like we are doing now. Women have adopted what we call agroforestry system, because while the trees are growing, they are also growing crops, and they can eat, they can sell, and they can improve their living condition. Those are the three things I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you. Briefly. And so I already mentioned about the important points for the restoration and sustainable management as the NbS. So I would like to stress 2 points. So one is as already Cécile mentioned local community involvement, and it's key. And so when we introduce such a restoration and project, we need the understanding and also the agreement from local communities, and also the restoration project must be include the enhancement of local communities' livelihood. So we are introducing, for example, in mangrove, silver fisheries, and also the ecotourism in those sites. And the second point, the important thing, and we have to evaluate variation of the ecosystem services functioning to the contribute to the NbS, and so how the contributes to the, for example, the mitigation, the adaptation, and also other things. That is also, I think, important.
Oh, yes. Oh, thank you. Just very quickly, I also support all the recommendations said by other speakers. I think the one lesson we've learned is that the focus when you're designing these restoration rehabilitation projects is that the focus should be on the landscape. You need to understand what is driving the degradation and the deforestation in the area. So if you're wondering like why all of a sudden ITTO is investing in piggeries or biogas digesters or handicrafts for women, it's to find alternative livelihoods that are driving the deforestation and the degradation in the area. So it's important to understand what those drivers are. In terms of supporting participatory governance, that's very important. Cecily's point about ensuring that the people that are involved in the project have land tenure rights, or at least access rights to what they're planting in the future, is incredibly important in terms of sustainability. And then last but not least, it's really important to adapt adaptive management when you're undergoing these project implementations, because it's very easy. You know, I just came back from project monitoring in which the community wanted to change the species because they realized that the species we had picked for the original project design didn't have as much of as a market. So it's important for resiliency to really have the community look at the context and to be able to adapt when monitoring and implementing the project. And then the last point is actually something that Dr. Sakaguchi actually mentioned, which is when you design a project, you design it for multiple benefits in order to leverage and really raise more financing for many different objectives.
My answer is also discussion is important between resident staff people and plan manager, because they should discuss and determine how large storm surge they prepare for. When they prepare for larger storm surges, they also need larger cost. So please, determination how large scale is important.
Everyone, and now move to second question. What innovation collaboration are needed for sustaining forest management, including disaster risk reduction using forest and maintain people livelihood with the larger framework of NbS? Please raise your hand when ready and make very short answer.
So as you know, the mangrove also exists so between the land and the marine. And so the site mangrove is so the spawning site and also the nursery site and foraging site of the fishes and all the other organizations. So we can collaborate with so of course the fishery sectors. And also the good way for balancing the mangrove rehabilitation and aquaculture. So that is a silver fishery. So it also contributes to livelihood enhancement of coastal communities. And also we can also collaborate with tourism sector. As I told you, the mangrove has a unique biodiversity, rich biodiversity. So in many places, so ecotourism operated using kayaks and boats. So that is also we can collaborate with the tourism sector.
To say that restoration is very a cost-effective activity. So I think for me, mobilizing funding to support this initiative is where we have to go. And this is a collective engagement, collective commitment for solidarity and to save our planet. That's what we need. Thank you.
Just very quickly, science and innovation isn't the problem. I think our current society is obsessed with science and innovation. What is the next cutting edge technology? What it needs to happen is actually more investment in the mundane. Essentially, the inventory is all the basic data sets that are really needed for the innovation itself, and more collaboration across different sectors and across different agencies.
Yeah, disaster risk reduction and maintaining people's livelihoods sometimes a trade-off. So people and governor should discuss which is more important. That's all.
So as a government official, I would say the concrete plan is essential for everyone's okay, mitigation. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Very quick answer, and apologize for my time control, but not good. So actually, I should close this seminar now, but it is the start of our collaboration to promote sustainable forest management as nature-based solutions. Thank you again for participating in this seminar, and also backup staff. I thank you very much. And let's give us big applause each other. Thank you very much.